So if I make a start, Anna, is that okay? Yes, it's 5 past, so we can make a start, I guess.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Lovely. I think that what it was asked from me today is to say a few words about autism. So just to rectify what we're talking about and connect it back to the channel and everything. I'm just going to go back to the DSM-5. That's the 5th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of mental disorders. So when this came out in 2013, it kind of replaced Asperger's and autistic disorder and other pervasive developmental disorders with that umbrella diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And when we talk about autism spectrum disorder, so that's including Asperger's, is including other pervasive developmental disorders. So what we're talking about here, we're talking about that deficit in social communication, social interaction, restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior, of interests, or of activities. And what I would like to just make it a bit clear is because obviously a lot of people still they self-identify as Aspie or Asperger's, and that is fine, you know, obviously, but in terms of terminology and how we are using it within the channel, what we're doing, we're using identity first language. And if you ask me why, it's what autistic individuals themselves and autistic advocacy groups prefer. So therefore, this is what we will be using. So we're going to be talking about autistic adults, autistic children, rather than adults with autism or children with autism. So obviously, so people are saying to me sometimes, okay, now that we've got that umbrella term, how do we differentiate things, and how do we differentiate terminology of Asperger's now to or the high functioning or low functioning autism? And autism is one, you know, it's one. Autism is the same really for everyone. However, there's these co-occurring conditions that might make things a bit different for individuals. And you know, when it's what we always say is that I've got many friends that they're autistic themselves. They're not the same. They're different people. You know, once you meet one person with autism, you just met one person with autism. Doesn't mean that you know it all. So I just wanted to clarify things before we continue with our presentation. So over to you guys.
Thanks, Vivi, for the clarification of the terminology used. So, called Alessandro Miglaccio. He has been an aerospace engineer, and he has worked for 10 years in major aerospace companies. And today he is going to share with us his experiences as an autistic person employed in his company, the challenges he has faced up to now. And of course, he has reached a very high level in his career. And he's also going to propose ways that we can change things in the working environment and the workplace in general to make the workplace a friendlier place for autistic people. So over to you, Alex.
Can you hear me? Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. So so I presented this topic in my company. Now I'm presenting it to more of a wide audience. It's a draft of my presentation, so I need to really rehearse it. So forgive me if there's something, some typos in the text. So I say let's get on with it. So what are we going to talk about? Autism in the sciences and engineering, which is my field. Um, Getting onto the ladder, like how do you get work with autism, in particular, high functioning autism, pitfalls at work, the handbook that some of my autistic colleagues have created. They try to deal better with their colleagues. ASD, or autism and isolation at work during COVID-19, and then the quintessential question, like telling or not telling your employer about um, your autism. So let's get on with it. So about me, I'm an aerospace engineer. Um, yeah, I graduated with average grades. I wasn't top of my class, nothing like that. I was okay. Um, I think my proudest moment was doing my internship at NASA, but that was 10 years ago. So ever since, I've been working on major aerospace companies, and at the moment, I'm working on, well, airplane maintenance, let's say. And but it's not really about aerospace and engineering. It's about how do you work in a big organization that has, my organization has 100,000 employees, and you kind of hide, you know, in the mix. There's so many people, and sometimes it can feel like. Um, if you want to be irrelevant, significant, you're not, because there's so many of us. Um, I was perceived as difficult at work, despite my good performance. So it's like there's something off about me, you know. And maybe because I was autistic all along. I was diagnosed a couple of years ago when during one of the many discussions I had with my managers, the union representative in the room took me aside and said, "Could you be autistic? Why don't you get tested?" And I was absolutely horrible to him because, I'm Italian originally, and implying that a person could be autistic is considered an insult, or by some people. So really, I didn't take it well. But sometime later, I kind of acknowledged it, and I got tested, and I got diagnosed. Yeah, tested. I mean, there's a lengthy process with a psychologist and families involved and all of that. So it's not just like a blood test, as you know. It's a more involved process than that. And my employer knows about it now, and they're in the middle of adjusting to it. That they're really in the struggle. Try to understand what it is, because despite it's a large organization with people devoted to employees' well-being, they kind of like, not all of them are aware about what autism is, and that's why I try to raise awareness, within my company and outside. So yeah. Um, so who else has this high functioning autism? Well, it seems that I don't know the statistics. I've been told from my contacts with the unions that a lot of people in the sciences and in engineering have this high functioning autism. A lot of people in software development have it. It's a protected characteristic under UK law, and it it's somewhat preferred characteristic. I know it's controversial, but it seems that people with high functioning autism have like a better handle, over sciences and math, because of the reliance, on guidelines, rules, and logic. So who else has it? Historically, it is believed that Isaac Newton had autism, Charles Darwin, Nikola Tesla, and so on and so on. Apparently, even Steve Jobs. Well, if you look at the movie, I didn't read the autobiography, but there is some. You may ask yourself some question about this behavior, but I don't know about this. I only know that a lot of scientists in history, but also a lot of people in the arts, are believed or are diagnosed with high functioning autism, or just autism. I differentiate, but it's just one spectrum in the end. Um, before there was Asperger, and now it's just autism. So maybe we can go to next. A few thoughts on securing employment. Um, so job interviews are the most confusing thing, to everybody. Sometimes they do rely on exercises, I mean, there are things that people with autism may not understand, like why, your aptitude for playing football is important, because it shows that you can do teamwork. Yeah, but you can say whatever you want in your CV. It could be the head of the team, and in reality, you may not be good at all at teamwork. So, and when I was doing my interview at Shell in the Netherlands, we had like an exercise where we sit around the table and we need to go around like a scenario, like a fictitious business that we need to manage. In that situation, people with autism are absolutely at a disadvantage, because around the table with many other candidates you don't know, you can feel intimidated, and the loudest mouth kind of wins, shows assertiveness. And well, that's not right, isn't it? Because there are people that are shy, or people with autism, and they don't feel like talking to a bunch of strangers right away. It is not a fair test. So yeah, it's difficult for everybody. Yes, what else? Well, you need to adapt. So big organization has precise rules, and basically, if there is 100,000 employees that are neurotypical and one autistic, the autistic needs to adapt. I mean, it's the same thing with culture. If the company has one culture, you need to adapt your values to the values of the company. So we really need to make a lot of adaptation, and that adaptation is well, not easy, not easy. I would just recommend, to bank on your strengths. So you shouldn't just try to say, to appear what you are not. If you are very good at math, if you're very good at technical work, but you're not very good at talking to people, there's no point going to the interview and saying you're an amazing leader, because they will find out pretty soon. So it will not be a good match. You'll feel horrible in the job. Um, you know, so I would say, just say what's your strong point is, honestly. And yeah, there is a little bit of kind of, interview is also a bit deceitful, but you can't really, people with that functioning autism really can't claim to be amazing leaders. Although I have led teams with many people, but in general, it seems to be not our strong point. But I cannot talk for everybody. As it was said, one autistic person is one autistic person. Um, so, yeah, this slide I collected a quote, probably can't read it, from my colleague, that says that her main challenge was that big companies, they give a lot of guidelines, and autistic people, they want to follow it, to the T, exactly as it is. For instance, one challenge I had this week, and I was reprimanded, is because my the team meeting that we have had an agenda, and the agenda is consistently not followed. And I asked the question, I was like, why are you not following the agenda? And they start being, not giving me a clear answer. So I got frustrated. It's like, and despite they knew the people with a functioning autism like structure, like guidelines, they insisted that I would take an exercise of improvisation, like a game. It's like, I said, sorry, I can't participate in that. Improvisation is something makes me uncomfortable. So, I won't do it, and I had to take 1 hour explaining why I would not do it. But these things happen. So from one hand, you need to adjust. On one hand, you need to speak up and say, sorry, I'm not happy to do this. Just because you pay me doesn't mean that you owe me or own me. Um, so yeah. So clear so far? I'm speaking too fast? No, I speak fast, I know. So I'll move on. Oh yeah. So to vent, to give opportunity to vent my frustration, I started doing some little comics. Uh, this is just an extract of it. This is a conversation that you may have for promotion, or it could be a job interview. It will be the same thing. And basically, some people, I would say, in around the human resources, they may be the masters of not being clear, because say what would be in a company, the route to promotion. They will give you some guidelines, what you need to show, but then when you go there to show it, they would say, oh yeah, but you have not done this, you've not done that, uh, try to, to push you to develop further, but also because not everybody can be promoted. So they kind of stop you, to slow you down. And it's like, okay, what do I exactly need to do? Because my colleague has been promoted and I wasn't. So how does it work? I had mentors, and I did mentor people, and neurotypical and not, they were very confused by, what is the path to being promoted. So yeah, I did a comic on that. Another situation was this one about having a business card. I went for asking, like, can I have a business card? I went to go to a conference, and if they ask me for a business card, uh, what do I give? And they said, oh no, but you don't represent the company. Um, for and that's fine. But for people with autism, it may be difficult to understand. It's like I go to a conference, they ask me for my business card, and I tell them that I don't represent the company. It's a bit confusing because if you go to a conference with a badge of your company, you expect it to represent the company. So again, strange, confusing guidelines may create a lot of frustration. Um, the last one is the help desk. This is a typical situation. With big organizations, they tend to use contractors. And contractors sometimes a bit clueless, depending on the quality of the communication with the contractor. The typical case is the IT help desk. You raise your phone, call the help desk and say, my computer is not working. And they say, yes, sir, we're going to install software for you. We're going to do this and that. You call again the following week, and the following week, and the following week, and nothing is being done because there is some obstacle within the contracting contract that you don't know about. So you get frustrated, um, and people will not necessarily understand why. It's because you were told that by raising the request such and such, you would get the thing you needed, but it's not like that. You need to still be friendly and try to get people to do things for you, um, uh, like a favor, even if it's part of their contract. So you still need to be nice, and make people understand what you need, despite the contractual agreement. There's no, they must do this, they must do that. I like that expression, but it there is such thing. They will do it if you're nice to them. They will not do it because they have to. Uh, so yeah, um, and now we got to the handbook. So I've seen some colleagues doing these. So just to explain to their colleagues um, what autism means, they create a little bit of a handbook. So they basically, what has been said before about autism, um, it's just listed down. It's like, look, I may be very good at lateral thinking and math and logic, but not so good, at, understanding the body language or the things, unspoken, things that they say, guideline, open all the windows, but in reality, you're not supposed to open all the windows. Those subtext sometimes is hard to get for people with autism, and so on and so on. Hypersensitivity to sound is one. I managed to get noise canceling headphones because we have very large open offices. If you don't know you have autism, or you just struggle with it, you feel free. You should ask your manager. In UK it's called reasonable adaptations or whatever, reasonable adjustments. So you can ask your employer to give you noise canceling headphones, or even to put you like in an office by yourself, if it's possible. It needs to be reasonable. So that's another point. So I don't really recommend necessarily the handbook. I don't think, I didn't do one myself to tell my colleagues how to deal with me. I just want to deal my own way, and my colleagues, I don't need really to tell that they have autism if it's not necessary. It's personal choice. Some people prefer to make it clear. Some people prefer, to just make the adjustments themselves. Um, you know, but at least, the manager or, somebody in the company should know about it, because if you get in trouble, it's good that somebody knows about it, so you can be sort of, in a way, justified, or get a little bit of extra patience when you mess up. Um, then this part is about COVID-19. So what I wanted to say here is that people during the isolation, felt, very isolated, and people with autism suffered as well because we like to socialize with people. I met a lot of people with autism in VR, for instance. You know, it's just that, so it's not that we want to be alone. We struggle the same way as everybody else. It's just that the chaotic nature of human interaction maybe sometimes is easier to deal when you are online because it's a little bit more structured. You have meetings at certain times, not so much casual conversation. But anyhow, so some positive, as I was saying, you avoid chaotic open spaces, so you can be in your home, control your environment. You can take a walk whenever you want. Your manager is not looking at you. As depending on the work policy, if you're working from home, they might let you do what you want as long as you deliver by a certain what you need to deliver by a certain deadline, so you have more freedom to take a walk. Well, before, when you were in the office, you can just open the door and run out um, without asking permission. um, Being informal with colleagues may be difficult, but it must also be easier because some managers, they do set kind of specific, social times with your team that maybe you didn't have before. So the negatives, well, I think what I struggle with the most is like the silence, the mute button, meetings with everybody with no camera on Google Meets, for instance, or meetings everybody on the camera. So if you have struggling with to read the body language, well, either you don't have body language because you don't see them, or too much of it because you see like 20 different windows with different faces and you don't know which one you should follow. Um, yeah. So, and also like what channel of communication? Not all companies are, sorry, wrong button. Not all companies are very clear about it. And it's not, I'm not talking about my company specifically. Some companies adapted better than others to this new world of working from home. Some didn't adapt at all. You still need supposed to go to the office. Um, yeah, mine did quite well, I'd say, quite well. But still, sometimes with the different tools, you can be confused which one you should use. Phone call, WhatsApp, WebEx, whatever they decide to use. Um, then life at home, so there is some more social opportunities. I was mentioning, meeting in VR, for instance. It's a new opportunity. I've seen some people with autism being enjoying building Lego bricks on their own or socially with the webcam. There's some groups in the UK where you can, not for autistic people, for everybody, you can come in with your children, with your wife, and build Lego with other people for adults and children alike. So that seems to be kind of an enjoyable activity, I say, for everybody, not just people with autism. Making new friends, like in VR or in chat rooms. So there is some more, opportunities for that. You lose the casual, meeting people in the street, but you gain other avenues, to meet people. And you can find specific groups, such as this event, where you can find like-minded people that share some of your, frustrations and challenges. Um, well, old favorites, family time, of course, reconnected with some old friends, crafts and hobbies. I think all of us have found things to do during this pandemic. People with autism, just the same, found things to keep busy with. Um, and then I think this is my final slide about telling or not telling your employer. So I don't have a guideline on it. Um, I decided at some point it was better to tell because being regarded as a difficult employee was not the best thing. Nobody wants to be regarded as difficult. And off. If something off. But did I tell all my colleagues? Do I advertise it? Not really, because I don't want to be treated any differently. I think you can, um, tell some people if you want to, especially if depending on the country. Some countries, um, potentially the autism thing could prevent you from getting a job, depending on how open is the culture. Uh, I'll say it's good to tell somebody, at least somebody you're close to at work. But the most important thing, I think, is feedback. If you think you're not coming across the way you want with your colleagues or your manager or your team, maybe you're leading hundreds of people, get feedback. Every company has a process of feedback. Ask them what they think of you. Tell them what you think of them. Sometimes this is done in writing, sometimes it's done in person. But it's good to have feedback. And there are people that I met that are not autistic and don't ask feedback, and they're totally unaware of the impact they have on others. So I think feedback is important to everybody, neurotypical and otherwise. Just to check yourself to see really how you're coming across. Because it's not like a mirror. It's like feedback is a mirror. You get. That's what. Yeah, that's the nature of feedback, is it? They tell you the way you behave and what they find difficult dealing with you. I think that was the last one. The only other thing I wanted to say is that I'm collecting material for a book I want to write on high functioning autism in the workplace, going more in depth about some, like one chapter I called it like inhuman resources, just to address some of the pitfalls and how you can get out of it when you get a little bit in trouble in a company, or how you can get you can get through an interview if you have autism and things like that. So not commercial, I want to raise awareness, but it's not to make money at all, because you cannot make money writing a book these days. So I'm collecting material. Maybe in a couple of years I'll put together a booklet. There's the famous like Asperger on the Job, which is a bit outdated, but it's still a decent book to read or to listen if you like the audiobook. I would like to do something similar, maybe for aerospace or general engineering companies, but we'll see. So if any of you has any input on that, you can contact Anna. Yeah, so and Viv. So feel free. They'll get in touch with me. But again, I like to raise awareness. That's my purpose. So I think I rushed a little bit through this. Sorry about that. It's my way. I rumble and go too fast. So feedback, yeah. So if you have any questions, any notes, any frustration, feel free.
Thank you, Alex, for the great presentation. I think you raised a lot of topics at the same time. I have more than 10 questions right now, but I think to the audience to first ask their questions. So you can raise your hand if you have a question to Alex. I think I will unmute everybody so we turn it into a discussion. Or
perhaps a discussion would be better.
Yes, I have unmuted everybody, so it's better to discuss. Yeah.
What an amazing presentation that was. Thank you. Thank you. That was really good.
Right. Yeah, you're welcome. I did the same thing in my company, and they loved it. I had more than 100 people from HR and occupational health. Strange that only like HR people, occupational health, they care. It should be every person should really care about this topic. Not, but you need to start somewhere.
Yes, definitely. I am thinking of I don't know. So I really like the social stories. So like the comics that you did, I wasn't able to read them. I think that the so can you read like one of them for us, just to get the gist?
Oh yeah, well, it's actually longer than that. It's like 9 boxes. I just put like the main part. where you are going through, for instance, this one, where you're going through the the promotion process, and they start asking you lots and lots of questions about your performance, and at some point the person is like not very happy. You're telling them that you're amazing, your boss is happy with your performance, and they might be happy once they find a problem with you. It's like, oh, I found a reason to slow down this guy's progression, and it shouldn't be like that, and it should be clear what you need to do. But because companies are most likely most often are pyramid, so the base is large and the top is small, so not everybody can be promoted. So they need to give reasons why you cannot be promoted, but these reasons, they are confusing to everybody sometimes by design. But to autistic people, they're even more confusing because they may say you need to show outstanding leadership, and then you find other people that are promoted to high level that show very little leadership, and they say, what is the standard? It's just in big organization, that's what you get. You cannot get consistency depending also who you talk to, who is the person following your development. The second one was about, the what happens with the business card, and that was really like frustrating to me because I found out, that is just part of the comic, but I found out, after I went to a conference, that a lot of my colleagues had business cards. It's like, okay, so if you are friend with your boss, you can get a business card. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah. So if you're a friend with your boss, and sometimes people with autism don't get it, just need to be friend,
So
it's
there's
not a
a
matter
bit of
of
discrimination, I think that was a case of discrimination probably there. This is what you're
well,
trying to
that's the
say.
thing. Sometimes you get more if making your way to a big company, even a small one. It's as a mix of being very skilled uh, at your job, but also being very skilled at what's called playing the game. You need to know the unwritten rules. There's a book, The Rules of Power. Somewhat, you need to understand, the mechanism of the company and navigate them. And people with autism are not normally the best at doing that because that's all unspoken, unwritten.
Yeah, the comics that you have there, they kind of reminded me social stories. So we use social stories to kind of teach autistic individuals or autistic children on how perhaps to respond to social situations, and I felt that these were great. The comics that you had there, they were really good. Like as a way of a kind of social stories, I was thinking about social stories in a workplace, really, about all these unwritten rules that you're talking about, all this about the promotion processes and what it is. And obviously the reasonable adjustments that are needed in the workplace, especially because is that spiky profile that we call it with autism. So you might be very good at one thing but very bad at another thing. So is that spiky profile, as we call it. And the reasonable adjustments that you mentioned, and what is reasonable, what do we mean by reasonable? So all these things, I think that they're great things to talk about and think about, because what is a reasonable adjustment for you might not be necessarily what the company or that particular company might think that it is a reasonable adjustment, whereas another company that their ethos might be a lot different. They might feel that, yes, this is a reasonable adjustment. So I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing about that. My union representative at some point is a lovely guy. He kind of implied that a reasonable adjustment would be being moved to a position where you are not you need to deal with people so much, You know, and I said, oh, but I want to be a manager. So I cannot be a manager with autism. That's what you're saying, because I struggle dealing with people. You know, it's like you need to overcome, you know, the deficit. It's not that you need to be put in a place where you not deal with people, you know, just with maybe machines and computers, because that's I don't think that's a good message. That would be a reasonable adjustment. That's kind of segregation of people that have some sort of, you know, special characteristics, and that's not the intention.
Yeah. Yes, you're spot
Yeah.
on, I think. Any other comments from anyone else from the audience? I think I've muted you all. Sorry, I've muted because I could hear background noise, but I think
No,
I've
they're not muted now. But I saw
oh,
two hand raises. One was from Mason. Was it random, or you actually wanted to ask a question? I saw two hand raises. One was from Mason. Probably it was random. Alex, I'd like to ask a question. Because you know I'm doing research in VR and autistic people. I've seen that there are lots of companies that have devised actually specific software, VR software to train soft skills. Do you think that this would make a difference to autistic people in the work environment? Like even in terms of interview, there's lots of software out there using simulation or VR interview simulation to help autistic people adapt to a scenario of interview or a working situation that they have, you know, a disagreement with a colleague of theirs or this kind of stuff. Have you ever tried any of those, or do you think they would work?
As with many skills, I think that practice makes perfect. So you got to do it like lots and lots of times to be good at it. But interviews are very situation specific. No, I've not tried software. I did rehearse interviews when I was at university. I did mock interviews, and I gave mock interviews to children at middle school, you know, to try to prepare them. But no, I didn't use like software as such or any tools. There are trainings, yeah, um, yeah, that can be done to improve that aspect. You know, especially things like dealing with conflicts, because sometimes interviews may be a little bit of dealing with conflicts. You know, if they don't understand
Yeah.
you, you know, and another one soft skill training I would recommend is like emotional intelligence. You know, it teaches you how to connect, you know, how to care. Sometimes people with autism may not be the best at, I don't say some people, not everybody, not be the best at understanding the needs. You know, your colleague may say, oh, I need to leave the job, the work for 3 hours and do something important for my family. You may not necessarily be immediate, very fast at understanding that need. Say, oh, but we have a work to do. You know, not emotional intelligence. You know,
Yeah.
sorry, going back to the interview. You know, there's like a mix of soft skills that make, you know, how good you are in an interview. And if you have any software that can help, I'll be happy to test it and see, you know, if it actually helps.
Yeah, because the thing is that with virtual reality, the immersion is great. So actually, it's as if you attend a proper interview. And especially if you use a VR headset, you experience the actual thing. And of course, it's not another human being that you have in front of you, but it's an avatar, and you can practice the way you reply to him. You can practice the way you need clarification or things like that. I'm
Well,
sorry.
the limitation, I think, is that we need to have full eye tracking, because from the eyes and maybe some of the face expression, you understand if your interviewer is getting you, or they're getting bored, or you're getting off track. You know, especially if you are nailing the question, you know, that they're asking you or not. So VR can help because you have
Yeah.
some part of the body language, but it's like a negotiation. It's like a sort of game of looks, and you know, it depends also what level you're doing it. You know, if it's just to get the job, the first job, if it's you already have a job, you have to get a different one. So, but yeah, I think when we get better tracking, it will be even better. But as I say, if they let me do interviews to children just to prepare them for their future work, why not virtual reality? I cannot go to schools anymore, so virtual reality is the next best thing.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Any other comments from the rest of the people, the audience?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
What are you
Hello.
guys doing?
Alex, would you like? I mean, out of curiosity, you said that you were diagnosed 2 years ago, very recently. So, did you initiate the process of getting tested and diagnosed, or your colleagues, your co-workers actually asked you to do this? And what were the actual visible behavioral traits that made them or you feel that you need to be tested?
Well, well, that's a very good question. So it became apparent through my interactions at work that something was off, that I lacked certain, as I mentioned, emotional intelligence, that I was not getting, the needs of my colleagues. Because when you are just doing your technical job, technical reports, machines, computers, that's easy. When you need to
Yeah,
deal with people, what I realized is that it's all about people. You do software for somebody that serves somebody else's needs. So it's all about managing people, stakeholder management. And more I dealt with people, the more I realized it was something not fully, connecting. I wasn't, they were not getting me, I wasn't getting them. So say what visible y- well, I think it's very difficult to pinpoint what, because people are very complex. I am an Italian working in England. At the same time, I am gay, so I'm part of that aspect of diversity, and I have a functioning autism, which is another aspect of diversity. So it's all a mix of things that
yeah,
make me what I am. So specifically, you know. Um, I think that there was a cultural aspect to it. I think that English people are very keen on maintaining a certain, control in the workspace, control of your emotion, understanding. They have a lot of patience, and I wasn't showing a lot of that. Some of that I blamed it to being Italian. I said, oh, it's cultural. But at some point I realized, like, especially when I learned more and more, I read about high functioning autism, the more hypersensitivity to sound and things like that, and I realized, oh, that's it. That explains all my life. Why at school I didn't have like I wasn't the most popular. Although I was the head of the class, I liked the spotlight, but there was always some difficulty with me having friends, and so I thought, oh, that all makes sense. That's all it is, and I went for
mm,
diagnosis, and yeah, and it's a long process. It may take a few months or a few years,
yeah,
um, but that help made sense to all of my lifelong struggle. By the time I was diagnosed, I realized that a lot of the challenges I already overcome by myself without even knowing it. That's why I end up being successful at my work. Unfortunately, some people don't even get to with autism, don't even get to get a job or to maintain it. You know, uh, because
yeah.
if I didn't find out that I had autism, I don't know, I could have been fired. Because they just thought I was evil or something. You know, um, so that helped.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, because it seems quite weird that all these years no one was, in your way to actually find out that something is wrong. That a teacher, uh, all those people, and you were involved. All these groups you were involved in school, your classmates or
It,
some specialists. No one ever like
no,
doubted
no,
that. Yeah,
absolutely never, because I was quite, you know, okay with social, not too bad, but also not the best. It's just the stakes. When the stakes in the workplace became very high, leading people, showing compassion, and leading them, leadership. there is where the flaws, came apparent, because the stakes were very
Yeah.
high. When you have to deal people, you have a duty of care, you're responsible for them. And it's there where the stakes are very high, the pressure is very high, and then the not so I say problem, but some of your characteristics may become apparent. At least that was my story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I've noticed Nightmare. Nightmare wants to ask a question. I've seen a hand raised by Nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
basically, I've heard a lot now in your presentation about basically environments where you are already like basically saddles, but not as much knowing how to deal with what you have, but you still have something already. What do you have for tips for those with autism that don't have a job yet and want to like start in a way that is maybe not as high functioning? Because, for example, you mentioned a lot like very technical stuff, which is jobs that I won't even be. Also, I think I'm tapped out because I just muted myself on accident.
Well, so if I understand the question, is about well, high functioning doesn't necessarily, that you are asking about, how to get a job, not necessarily, this high level, high skill, um, what I was giving in the presentation before about, where was it, about the contract. People with autism tend to have very good creativity, keen eye for detail, highly analytical. Yeah, that's why a lot of engineer scientists happen to be autistic. Um, but yeah, you can't really sell that during an interview. You can just say there, I'm autistic, give me a job. That would be discrimination, is it? So, as I was saying before, I would recommend to bank on the strengths. So when I went to interviews at first to get my first job, they keep on hammering me with this teamwork, and I kept on thinking like, I hate teamwork. I'm very good by myself. I'm not very good with other people, and I had to try to find an employer that was interested in me for my technical skills, not necessarily for all that teamwork. Sometimes it's not even real. HR people sometimes get lost a bit in their own rhetoric, and they ask for things. They want you to be fully rounded, when in reality they just need somebody who's good at one specific job that can be actually very simple. Um, so I just say, try to understand your skills. If you're not sure, there are some auto testing online to understand where your strengths are, get feedback from your peers, and go to the interview and say, people think of me that I am good at this, and that. And it's all about finding a good match. Sometimes it's maybe impossible because they want, the astronaut, they want amazing, but you may find a niche. My attack point was consultancy, because consultancy, they would take people with no experience. And I started doing engineering from that point. I say, okay, they put me in an office, they say, start doing this calculation, this is how you do it. And I start little by little building confidence. Um, because if I approach a bigger organization and I say, oh, this is me, I would fail. I don't know how many interviews I failed, hundreds. To this day, I do interviews to change job every month, and I fail. So it's difficult for everybody. And now with COVID-19 and so on, I say they made it nearly impossible. So if it doesn't work that way, it's harder, much harder. But you may think of the alternative, creating yourself a job. Creating or associating yourself with a person that has a startup company idea. I know it's very hard, and try to take that creativity path. Not the usual do interviews and work for a big organization, because that may not be for everybody. I myself, I'm planning soon enough, hopefully, to quit the big organization and work on my own, because I think I'll be doing much better. I mean, my own with my friends. Um, but yeah, because big organization requires a lot of adjusting, and I don't think I can do it forever. Sorry, I don't know if I answered your question. Hopefully there
I
was
mean,
some element that is useful. Go ahead.
yeah, it was kind of educational at least. But well, let's just put my own experience here as an example. I have autism myself. I have done some jobs, and they were usually low key because I couldn't finish schooling. So, for instance, just normal jobs like grocery store stuff, like just filling beans and such. I had trouble with that, not just because social stuff, because apparently I'm pretty good at the social part when it's a business relationship, as I see it. But I'm bad with my speed, and I also have a thing where if I don't have enough interest in it, which is maybe has more to do with ADHD, but I'm not sure. I basically lose interest and I lose motivation and I lose even more speed in doing it. It's basically a downward spiral. But maybe do you have any ideas for people who actually have autism and they know it, and their employees know it and they are employed, but they are noticing that they are going backwards? Do you have any tips for those people to help function with that?
Well, I'm afraid, because I was diagnosed only 2 years ago, that and I was already way into my career when I realized it. Yeah, I don't think I could give you good advice on that. I don't know if Anna or Vivi can, they're more into the discipline.
Hi. I have autism, and
Hello, Rob.
I have had that same problem when I've had jobs in the past. The secret I found was that neurotypical people tend to not notice the how well things are done, and we tend to over analyze how well things are done, and they just want things done quickly, not well. That sort of helped me a lot, and singing songs in my head or going through philosophy things I'd read in my head to sort of keep my interest, and audiobooks sometimes, if you can. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was a very good comment. Thank you. Vivi, have you got any comments on that?
So not really. I'm not an expert on employment and autism, and haven't done any research. But I can talk from personal experiences, really, and personal experiences from friends, colleagues, and university. So I think that being based in university, it's kind of it's really biased. My experiences are very biased here, because in university there's these things that you would expect, that people are very open-minded, or that that people would be open-minded and they would be looking at to learn more, but then you find that people in HR, or the way that interviews are conducted, they're sometimes hard. And I would say, on the interviews front, I was thinking while you were talking about how do we get a job and how do we get in that work environment. And I've been in the part of the interview panel for PhD students that they're autistic. And we also always, so as part of the application, so he's asking for any disabilities, and when people would put in autism, then you would ask for any reasonable adjustments that they might need. And some of them they've been asking for the interview questions, or the interview themes, and we have provided that. So that might be something to think about when you are applying for jobs, and what kind of, and I think, yes, you're thinking about what are the reasonable adjustments that you might need in order to make this work for you, and the organization that you might be targeting at the time being. And then I'm thinking also the lately we have been, so I'm part of the TSAT Centre at the University of Kent, and we're very clued on about autism and intellectual disabilities as well. So we have been doing a lot of presentations to academics regarding autism, and so these presentations that were for autism and targeting, talking about autistic students. But lately, I have personally had a few emails asking, so some of the heads of departments, they've been asking about people so co-workers, that they are on the spectrum, and they want to support them. So now we've been talking with HR to provide HR with some training about autism, and it hasn't happened yet due to COVID and everything else that has been going on, but it's on the cards, and that is important for me. I think that that is an important step that I'll be pushing forward. But yes. No, Anna, I don't know if you wanted to add.
Yeah, that's great. I was just thinking that in terms of the working environment, and that autistic people, actually they don't have to adapt. They don't have to adapt in the way that the work environment of the neurotypicals work. I think it's a common. It has to be like a common. It has to be a common understanding, so that there should be some like of little windows in those guidelines that sometimes are followed, sometimes are not followed. So I think that like when an autistic person is looking for a job, in terms of UK, I know that the statistics are very low. I think that a percentage of age 10% can actually get a job in UK, according to recent statistics, which is very low. It's very low. I know there are specific companies, technology-based, VR-based, that are trying to train autistic people to get a job through devising virtual environments, and because this is what they are very good at. So, I mean, if companies exploit the really good things, as you said about the spiky profiles, the strong points of autistic people, I think autistic people would do a great career. And that's the way I see that companies should actually exploit these qualities that we neurotypicals don't possess. And if they do it, then I think the company will be a lot forward and will be, will advance quite quickly. And this is something that they don't do because of bias. So I think there's a whole framework that has to be set in the working environment and in the company section. And this is something I think that USA does in terms of neurotypical people. I don't have to be autistic. I'm not autistic, but I'm not good at maths. I'm very good at, other stuff like Latin and ancient Greek and whatever, but I'm not very good at maths. The same happens with autistic people. They are very good at specific things. So USA, what USA universities and companies recently do, and something they've been doing for years, but recently they've taken on a lot from all over the world, lots of people. They actually give them the chance to take advantage of this strong asset they have. They're good at maths, so they're going to do something related to maths and advance really quickly, and to also help the company advance very quickly. I think that even in the work environment and in the workplace, we should take advantage of the assets of autistic people. This is what I believe, and this is the way that companies will get convinced that autistic people are an asset in a company. In my opinion, they are an asset.
It's what Rob was saying early on, I think. Rob, you were saying that, neurotypicals are looking at doing the work, do it fast, go in and out, but they're not really paying much attention to the detail. And you're absolutely right. For some jobs, people are looking for convenience and speed, but then there are other jobs that they really need that attention, really. And this is and what we were saying early on about that spiky profile, it's playing to your strengths, and the strengths might be different for every single one of us, but trying to find what that strength is and playing to your strengths, I guess that's important.
Yeah. Any other comments? I think I saw.
I raised my hand.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I have
Shimron, yeah.
Asperger's, which is obviously on the high functioning end of the spectrum. I have an IQ of 155. I'm age 42, and my whole life I've only worked minimum wage manual labor jobs because of that. And I can relate to what Rob was saying in terms of, like, right now I work in a factory and I am very precise in my work. Like, it has to be perfect basically, and they just want me to get it done as fast as possible. So, yeah, but it's very hard to motivate myself to take advantage of my intelligence, and that's the biggest impediment that I've experienced with Asperger's. That's all.
I was thinking about one thing that they expect from me at work. I work in aerospace, and I have signatory, so I check technical reports and take responsibility for the safety of the passengers in some degree, indirect degree. And sometimes it's the same. They expect me, it's like, oh, just get it signed. It's like, yeah, but it's wrong. So the attention to detail is what's required by the job of checking technical documents. But then it's like, oh, can you please be more pragmatic? So it's like, let it go of some of the errors and get it signed. It's like, okay, those are two opposite things. Either like I have attention to detail, or I'm pragmatic and I try to get it signed quickly. I can do both, and that's not easy.
Yeah, and I hear what Simran is saying as well, regarding that they want you to get it off and done quickly, and that attention to detail. But Simran, this is your strength, really, that attention to detail. Perhaps I don't know if you've talked to that to the factory that you're working, perhaps could they find something else for you, like another post that requires that attention to detail, because this is something that you're really good at, and it's a shame that you're not using that 150 IQ of yours. So they're missing out there. They really are. Is it? I don't know if there's something that you could talk to, like your manager or someone above their post. Someone in HR.
The thing is that they see Asperger's as a disability rather than an advantage. So, like, for example, there have been many new employees since I started working there, and they have been taught how to use the machines properly, how to like master the machines there. And the factory has no. They've shown no intention of instructing me on how to use the machines, even though I could quite competently, I'm sure.
So perhaps you need to
So-
talk to them and say to them that I want to be part of this. Can I please
Yeah,
show?
that's what my social worker tells me all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's probably the way.
And perhaps they might not know what it is that they're missing out. You know what I mean? So they might
It's
not
true,
realise.
They should possibly take some education in.
Yes.
Although Asperger's is very rare, so it's unlikely they'll have another employee with the same condition. So
It's not very rare. It's not very rare. They might do, but it might be not presenting it the same way, because everybody's different. But it's worth it. It really is. Try and push for that, and make them realise what you have to offer. Really, I'm aware of the time. I think that we went over and
we went over.
But it's such a nice thing
Alex.
to talk to you guys. Thank you for the presentation today. It was really lovely, and it was really lovely to talk to everyone. I think that it gives that perspective. This is what this channel is about to provoke those discussions and come together for all of us, as you know, me as neurotypical, but really interested in autism from a clinical point of view and research point of view, other people from parent point of view, carer point of view, or autism itself, you know. So thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Alex. Great presentation.
Yes.
I'm glad I managed to get in here before it ended.
Lovely. Great. So see you for the next one, guys. I think it's in April. When is it, Anna? I can't remember now from the top of my head.
I mean, I think it's the 28th, but I will advertise soon today or tomorrow. Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're going to be
our next monthly.
We're going to be talking about education. So we're going to be talking about autistic experiences in education, mainstream and special education. So that I hope people will be able to attend that one. It's going to be a great event as well.
I came here at the last minute, so nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Vivi. Thank you for the information.
Lovely, nice to see you too, Ian.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Bye,
I suppose.
Bye. Bye all.
Bye everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.